Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Touched by Horse. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with your host today, Michelle Sidun. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be with you here. I can't wait to hear about all that you do in this world of equine gestalt coaching and the people that you work with, et cetera. So let's first start with maybe even how you came into equine gestalt coaching. How did you find Touched by Horse and Melissa Pierce?
Okay. So we had actually moved from Michigan to Wyoming, and I was trying to just feel out what was out here, what was out west. And I went to the Equine Expo that is down in Denver. Nice. And I saw Melissa Pierce, and I forget what the title of her seminar was. It wasn't with horses. It was just kind of in a room, but it had the word coaching in it. And I thought, well, you know, I have a lot of English background. I have different horses than quarter horses. And maybe I want to do some coaching, some instructional type thing for people here in Wyoming. And so when I sat through her seminar, it was not the kind of coaching that I was thinking of. We pulled a card from her deck, and I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck? And
was that like a new thing for you? You're like,
it was totally new. I knew hippotherapy.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the other types of things that were offered out there.
Yeah.
However, I had been witnessing things with my horses and my daughters and different people that I interacted with my horses. There was just this shift that happened a lot of times. So I knew there was something there. I didn't know what it was called, or if it was real, or if I was just imagining it. And so Melissa put words and to all of that I'd been witnessing, and you gave it validity,
right?
And said, yes, this is a real thing.
Yeah, it's something. This is like, you're not crazy. This is like a thing.
Yeah, horses
right?
are making a difference in our lives. They're shifting our emotions.
That's amazing. So then did you immediately go get certified as a equine?
Well, that was, so the expo was in March of 2012. And I entered her program July of 2012. Wow. The very next class that was offered, I entered her program and graduated in September 2014.
That's awesome. So, okay. So now I want to know, after going through that process, I imagine it was new for you and you went through it, and then all sorts of new ideas and possibilities opened up for what you wanted to do with horses and coaching and.
Absolutely. I had always done a natural horsemanship. When I entered the horse world at 30 and started taking riding lessons, I was always drawn to the more natural, to the more relationship-based experience you could have with horses to begin with. Right. So this just melded everything together. And I thought, I looked back at the stuff that our family had gone through and how horses had helped us. And now I had validity and I had words to put to it. And I thought, if they can do that for my family, I want to do that for others.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So actually so what is the kind of work that you do? Who do you help, and how do you partner with horses too?
Well, of course, I'm not going to turn anybody away, but I really go towards people that have been bullied in their lives and the bullies themselves. That's a behavior that they've learned somewhere, and they're using it as a coping mechanism to hide behind. And so our family in particular has experienced, and I think everybody has, high school but it's so much broader than just that school age thing. It happens in workplaces. It happens in relationships, siblings, parents, and children. It's on a lot of different levels. And so that's really what I'm drawn to, is helping give people the tools that they need to deal with it. You're not going to eradicate bullying. There's always going to be bullies in the world. Sure. But giving you the tools. And if you are the bully, where did that come from? Why are you doing that?
Do you think bullies are they self-aware enough to go like, hey, I don't want to be this way, and I want some different options?
Not always. It's just such a learned behavior. They may have been, they learned it in their own home, and it's just who they are. So bringing that awareness that, oh my gosh, when I say those things, it does hurt people. Even if I say, oh, I was just kidding, it doesn't take away the hurt.
Yeah. Interesting. I think probably too, as adults, we get into it's so easy to picture the movie of bullying as a kid and like what it would
Mm-hmm.
look like and sound like. And I think as we get into adults and the interpersonal exchanges get a little more nuanced and sneaky. I mean, like it just kind of sneaks into a conversation and maybe I don't even realize I'm bullying
Right.
somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that look like? Like for somebody who, for the how do I say it? Like the subtle bullying? Because then there's like the obvious examples, but then there's the subtle examples that still make people feel small. So what do the subtle ones look like?
Subtle ones can just be, I mean, could be like asking a question like, well, what were you really thinking? Or what were you doing? Why did you do it like that? And it makes you question yourself. And if it's in a workplace, that can be huge. If you have a superior that's saying, why did you do it like that? Or what were you thinking when you did that? And sometimes it's the tone more than the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you start questioning yourself. I guess I did that wrong.
Right.
And I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it takes a notch out of your self-confidence.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, what's the experience on the receiving end of bullying? Like, so it takes a notch out of yourself. It makes you question yourself. What other things on the receiving end of bullying? How do I know if I'm being bullied? Because I think a lot of people just assume that's, it's just me. It's my fault. It's my problem.
Right. You just say you're the victim. A lot of times it can just, when you're on the receiving end of that, you shrink a little bit. You don't want to shine so brightly. Maybe you don't want to volunteer to do something even.
Right. Yeah.
So you kind of stand back in the shadows and you get small.
Right.
And that's not serving you at all.
That's really interesting. I think there's a lot of, so thought process here. There's a lot of people who I think are living smaller lives than they'd like to.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there isn't some originating incident or some bullying memory they're bringing forward to protect themselves. Like if that might not be one of the biggest causes for why we live small lives is because we've been bullied.
And you may have not even looked at it as bullying.
Right.
And so you don't even recognize that was an issue or trigger. And that's why that you're staying small.
Makes me think of like how you experienced when you walked into Melissa's session and you're like, oh, she's putting words to it. If not, I'm having this moment right now where I'm like, if we're not putting words to somebody feeling small, they're like, oh my gosh, you're putting words to this feeling I've had. And I didn't realize it was bullying, but once I can identify it, once there are words to it, like, what do I do with it? So I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe that was bullying. What do I do now? How do people do that?
One of the things is just the awareness is the big thing, and voicing that, hey, when you said that, it kind of made me feel a certain way. And having a conversation with that person, out and out bullying is huge,
Right.
and it's happening to you. And so often it is hard to stand up for yourself, right. Because it just makes you more of a victim. But in those very subtle aspects in a relationship with a spouse or parent to child or even siblings, when it's that subtle bullying that's made you feel small or that you can't put yourself out there, what you can do is just have a conversation and say, what, I didn't realize this, but this is how it's feeling to me. And just open up that conversation, because like we said before, the person that's on the other side of it may not even realize that they're making that kind of impact on you.
Right. How important is it to take action on that? Like, it's one thing to have the awareness of it. Oh, okay, well, that's what's going on right now. And then there's like the experience of yourself, I don't know, standing up for yourself or saying something. Is that important? Is it not important?
It's hugely important. And sometimes you can't say it to the person.
Yeah.
You've got to find a way around it, because it wouldn't be safe to say it to the person.
Got it. Yeah.
But you've got to figure out, how can I be different? And sometimes it is an avoidance, how can I stay away from a certain topic, or how can I stay away from interacting with that person alone? Lots of different tools. Boundaries are huge. And that's where the horses come into play so often, is they help us set boundaries. and
Yeah.
they'll just step all over your boundaries. And that's often what allows you to become a victim, is that you haven't set boundaries. You haven't created that bubble around yourself that says, hey, don't go there.
What does it mean when the horses are stepping all over your boundaries? Like, what do you mean? How does that happen?
They literally walk into you, bump you. They might cross your path if you're walking in a circle in the round pen or moving. They might actually block you and make you change direction.
Yeah.
So they physically do step into your space.
And they're doing that as like in support of you finding your voice. It's not like, horses are bullies. Horses are bullied creatures.
They're mimicking a behavior and going, oh, wow, this person doesn't have any boundaries. I'm just going to see how far I can push that.
Interesting.
And then you create physically and emotionally and mentally, how can I create a boundary so that big animal doesn't come into my space?
Yeah, I actually love that because it's in a controlled environment where I'm able, because you're there, right, as a coach and you're partnering
100%.
with the horse.
Yes.
To help facilitate this moment where somebody gets to know themselves as powerful. They're setting a boundary with a large animal.
Right. Yeah. And it's how often, and my question as a coach is to them is, how often do you feel stepped on? How often do you feel like somebody has come into your space without permission?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And so then they set the boundary. Do you find that the horses respond once they set boundaries?
They do. Absolutely. It's like they've created this imaginary bubble and the horse is like, yep, I can respect that.
That's so cool. What a cool experience to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to set a boundary, and then it works. Like, I think sometimes maybe in life, we try to muster the courage for setting a boundary but we do it meekly. And then what happens is we get stepped on with other humans because we didn't set the boundary. But to do it with a large animal like a horse, it gets respected. And now I know myself as someone who can produce a result.
Right.
That's a reaffirming experience.
Yeah. And knowing how it feels in your body when you set that boundary, because you can say, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. But if you don't do it with all of you, all of your being, then it's just words. And the horses blow right through that.
Yeah, totally. And so do humans. I mean, how many times it's like, I'm really going to do it this time. I'm really going to do it this time. And then it just, and it's not your fault. It's just that there's, like you said, I think I love that. That's why I love that there's an experience you can have to set a boundary and then feel it in your body. Like you're saying, you somatically integrate that in a way that you're like, oh, this is what that feels like. Now, when you go out in the real world with other humans, you have that to draw on. Wow.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. I love it. Tell me a little bit about, so I was looking at your website and you talk about alignment a lot and being congruent or incongruent. Talk to me a little bit about how we find that congruence with ourselves.
So as I've been a massage therapist for a number of years, actually 15 years.
Wow.
And so often in my sessions with massage clients, they would have pain or there would be something going on. And what often it was an injury. It was a post-surgical or a real injury, but sometimes it was just pain that was there and they didn't understand why it was there or why they couldn't get rid of it. And it was because there was this breakdown between body, mind, and spirit. And if I could meld all of that together, bring awareness, the pain would dissipate a lot of times, if not completely go away. And so, again, with the coaching, it's figuring out, where am I out of sync? In my body is out of sync because I've lost touch with spirit, or I'm living a lie, all kinds of different things like that. And so when you have that awareness and you can figure out ways to bring it all together, then we become in alignment and we're more congruent and happier and more peaceful.
Is it, I want to be sensitive with this, but is it fair to say that when we live inside of a bullying relationship that we're not being authentic to ourselves, or we're not in alignment?
We're not, because we're being dishonest to ourselves,
right.
And to the world and to the person that is is bullying us.
Mm.
And with
Right.
that dishonesty, it just, our heart and our mind are not in alignment anymore.
Right. So how do we, what are some ways to get back in alignment? Because I think that's at the core of even deciding that I want to stand up for myself, is starting to have awareness of like, I could live in that's an option. Number one, that I could live in alignment, and that I could feel powerful and self-expressed and all that. How do we start to move that direction?
Awareness is the first key.
Okay.
And coming to terms with the fact that I'm out of alignment, or I'm living a lie, or I'm in a bad relationship, whatever that it is.
Yeah.
You have to own it. You have to come to terms with it, and then make that choice of, what do I want to do about it?
Yeah.
And
If I think about, sorry, if I was just thinking about self-awareness, I would imagine there's different paths into self-awareness. How do you tangibly become self-aware of it?
working with equine gestalt coach or a coach or therapist, that can ask you the right questions, and help you dig into all of that, self-awareness and the whys behind it all. Melissa's program teaches all about the background. There's a lot of stuff that can be in the forefront, that we think is the problem, but we need to really get down to the nitty-gritty, down to the background, and figure out why and what happened. And then we can start moving forward from that and be more reactive, or more responsive instead of reactive.
Yeah. I wanted to unpack that a little bit, because I knew that, self-awareness as a concept is a big over the big picture of things, makes total sense. And then so I could say like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally noticing that I'm being bullied, but there's, like you said, all the whys behind that. And that's where you really start to unpack different layers of self-awareness, where maybe in the past you've tried to break through the bullying, or become self-aware, but you haven't been asking the right questions and getting deep enough to all the whys behind that. And I love that you point to just coaching is, I think sometimes we try to be so independent, we just fix it for ourselves.
Right. And oftentimes you can, but sometimes you've got to have somebody else ask the hard questions.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And hold you accountable.
Totally. It's hard to do it in your own fishbowl. It's hard to see what it's hard to see that in your own fishbowl.
Yeah.
I think. And I think if you want the transformation of it, if you want the transition of it to happen faster, I definitely think that happens with other people helping.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could spend 5 years trying to move past the bullying, or you could do it in, I don't know how long your sessions are, but I imagine like what I've known from this podcast is like, it happens fairly quickly with this approach.
It does. And with the horses have such a keen awareness of where we're at. Oftentimes they get it before we do. And they help bring us to that awareness. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. So cool. I love this. Well, if you had to give some advice for anybody feeling bullied, whether it's a parent and they have kids being bullied, or it's an adult who in their own life is being bullied at work or at home, how would you, what's the first step for them to take to move to the other side of that?
Take a breath. Realize what's happening. If you're in a safe place where you can safely say something to someone, say it. Find your voice and say, hey, this is not okay. You might have said you were joking. You might have thought we were playing back and forth, but it's not. It's crossed the line. If you're not in a safe place that you can do that, find somebody that you can talk to. Find somebody that can be a mediator between you and your bully. But the biggest thing is take a breath. Assess the situation of where you're at and see if it's safe to move forward or find somebody, and find your voice. You have got to find your voice. You have to stand up for yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Beautiful. If people want to reach out to you for help in finding their voice, finding alignment, and stepping into what's next for their life, how do they reach out to you?
So my website, www.throughthehorse.com. I'm also on Facebook, and my Facebook business page is Through the Horse. And my phone number here in Rawlins, Wyoming is 307-321-6715.
Perfect. Just and FYI, you work with people remotely as well, like through a phone.
Absolutely. We can do phone coaching. Rawlins, Wyoming is pretty remote. And I'm happy to have you come out to my 20 acres and meet my herd. But we can also do it remotely through Skyping or phone coaching.
Perfect. Awesome. So great. Thank you so much, Michelle, for this important work in the world. And here's to you and all of the freedom you're creating for people. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Chris.